Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our update. And I see quite a few people. I just thought if it's reasonable, just to give everybody just a chance to say hello, their name, and just where they're joining us from, just so everybody gets to see and meet everybody a little bit. So,
yeah. Should I start, Dr. Degenhardt?
Sure, please.
Okay. So my name is Sergio Marcucci. I'm a DO and Doctor in Health Science, and also have got a Master of Science in Osteopathic Clinical Research. I'm coming from Luxembourg, where osteopathic medicine has been recognized legally since now 2018. Finally.
Okay. Great, thank you.
No advancement in research in that field.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
How about Ron Ellis?
Hello. So my name is Ron Ellis. I am an osteopath in Lyon, France. So.
Welcome. Good to see you. Almut.
So hello, I'm Almut Bolz. I'm living in Berlin and working as an osteopathic practitioner, if you want. So in Germany, we have so different ways to reach this kind of work. And yeah, I'm having my own praxis there and working with children, women, and everybody else.
Great, thank you. Stephen.
Hi, I'm Steve Gus.
You're muted.
I'm Steve Gustafson. Unmuted now, I hope.
Well, where are you?
Sorry, that was my fault.
I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi right now. I teach at the medical school here. I teach manipulative medicine as well as pathology.
Great, thank you. Jed?
Yeah, Jed Downs, Madison, Wisconsin. Became an osteopath via Canadian trading late in life, and I'm basically just finishing out my career doing osteopathy as opposed to occupational medicine.
Great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Charles.
Hi, Charles Leonard. I'm in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. We've been here for about 6.5 years. I work at the UMass Fitchburg Family Practice Residency Program. I'm an osteopathic recognition director and really seeking to help strengthen the education of students and residents in this region, really working with UNE. So it's good to see everyone.
Great to see you too. Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Dean. I'm from Muskegon area, Michigan, and I am on core faculty for the OMM department. And I've just started a new journey. It looks like kind of launching some NICU OMM research at it looks like 2 hospitals here. So I'm very new at this journey, but I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, that sounds like excellent news. And if we have time at the end, maybe you can just give us a little more insight of what this new direction that you're taking, and that's exciting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is. And I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Thanks.
Dr. Brooks. You're muted right now.
I'm Dr. Bill Brooks. I live and work as a specialist in osteopathic manipulative medicine in Tucson, Arizona, and have a part-time private practice. And I've been working with the DO-Touch network for almost since its inception.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us. And Sherry.
Sherry, I think you're muted.
There I am.
There.
Yeah, Sherry Walker, Winchester, Tennessee, little burg in the middle of Tennessee. I have recently taken on a bunch of medical students and I'm aghast that they aren't learning enough OMT in school. So really privileged to be able to work with them and get them hands-on.
Well, that is great. And so welcome everyone. And you all know the staff at AT Still Research Institute and DO-Touch.NET. You'll be hearing from them as the day progresses. First of all, Happy New Year. I'm not sure if it feels like a new year. We all are experiencing the story of the pandemic in our own unique ways. Here in the US and certainly the Midwest, the numbers just continue to skyrocket and just disrupt what we think we can plan for. And so it's great to have people from all around the world. Clearly we are from, throughout Europe and the US. And so I appreciate the time for you to join us. So I'd like to begin just by giving an update about who we are as a network. And so with that, Sarah will go ahead and give us an update in regards to our membership.
All right. Okay, so my name is Sarah Meanirad, and I'm your PBRN coordinator for those I haven't met yet. So just for number purposes moving forward, we took data from the year before I started and compared it to the day I started until January 11th of 2022. So any numbers that you see, those are the parameters that is within. So we now have 877 members, which is up 18 from the year before, across 6 continents and 24 countries. And unfortunately, we can't convince the penguins to be interested in OMT. But we are very excited to have all of you joining us and everybody across the world that participates in our events. Go ahead,
Well,
Dr. Degenhardt.
I certainly know that there are medical staff that go in and out of Antarctica. So we just got to find somebody to complete our expansion throughout the globe. So
there you go.
All right. So one of the things that we have done since the beginning of our practice-based research network is an annual meeting. And our annual meeting is coming up. It will be in March. I believe it's the 20th, correct?
23rd.
23rd, thank you. March 23rd, that is a Wednesday. And it will be in conjunction or as a preliminary program right before the American Academy of Osteopathy's convocation. This is an 8 to 12 Eastern Standard Time meeting. So that would fit very nicely in the afternoon for those of you in Europe to be able to join. And for this year, our objectives are listed here. This is to highlight what we've been able to progress as a coordinating center in laying out our future directions for DO-Touch.NET. So we'll be looking at employing patient-reported outcomes in clinical practice to improve the quality of patient care. Jane Johnson has been working very hard, and Jeff Franklin, our data manager, in establishing an infrastructure for us to head in this direction. And we will actually be pilot testing with real patients for focused forums to get feedback, and we'll be talking more about that at the meeting in March and how to get involved. We will look at classification schemes for manipulative medicine treatment. As you all know, prior to starting this particular program, we had something called Technique of the Month, where we did a demonstration of a technique and people would give their perspectives of how they would label that and so forth. And we learned some lessons from that, and those lessons have been extended beyond the practice-based research network to help to further refine the science in manual therapy, in the field of manual therapy. And so we'll be having some special programming at our annual meeting on a more advanced level, looking at classification schemes for OMT. And over the last couple of years, we have lived underneath the shadows of COVID-2, SARS-CoV-2. And so we've done some work looking at the effects of OMT and its use in patients with acute problems, as well as been developing an infrastructure to try to look at how OMT is being used and how effective it might be in dealing with post-COVID syndrome. So this is an overview of our objectives for the annual meeting, which will be March 23rd, and you can join online or be in present. I was guaranteed this morning still that it will have an in-person conference there in Orlando. Are there any questions about, I was actually doing this ahead of time. So here's the actual program. And once again, looking at patient-reported outcomes. We will have a special keynote speaker, Christopher Standard. He is an associate professor in physical medicine and rehab at the University of Pittsburgh, and they've been doing a lot of work with incorporating patient-reported outcomes in their clinical practice network. So that's going to be a very insightful presentation. We'll follow that with our working group looking at OMT technique classification schemes, nomenclature, and then follow that up with the report on our work in dealing with the COVID pandemic. Are there any questions in regards to the annual meeting?
I don't see any in the chat, Dr. Degenhardt.
Okay. And just to let you know, for those that this would apply to, this will you will get CME credit to participate in this. You do need to register specifically to be able to be eligible for credit.
Dr. Degenhardt, can I interrupt you just 1 second?
Absolutely.
So there's actually a code for DO-Touch members. So there's actually a cost to register. It's $100, but if you have the code from us, you actually get a discount. And if you're an active member, then you get charged $0. So if you don't have your code, please email us and I will send it to you. It should be in your email, but I know how fast things can get buried. So if you can't find it, just let me know and I'll send it to you again.
And I have a comment for Sarah, since you're relatively new to this. So those of us who are specialists in osteopathic manipulative medicine, in the past, we needed to make sure that the CME for DO-Touch was credited to our subspecialty, to our specialty category. And it's been a few years, but I ran into a problem with that with the American Academy of Osteopathy and so forth. So you may just want to, I'm just giving you a heads up to make sure that it's, I remember working with Lisa Norman on this issue to make sure that this is clearly identified as an OMT activity as opposed to a ear, nose, and throat activity or something like that.
That's good to know. Thank you. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
And so the pictures on this slide were from the convocation 2 years ago in Colorado Springs that was being held as the doors of the pandemic, the bars of the pandemic were coming down. It was a surreal experience, but it was a very good program. We took it to the extreme of toe touching versus elbow tapping in our one greeting there. So, okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So the issue we were wanting to bring up today is really important, and that's membership engagement. Now, we look at that in a variety of ways. So our primary purpose as a practice-based research network is to provide an infrastructure to do research within clinical practice. Now, practice research networks came out of the primary care discipline in the 1950s in Europe, and were brought to the US in the late 1960s, also within the area of primary care. And many people will see that the primary care providers did this because they saw patients differently than what was going on in the university laboratories and the ivory towers, as they're sometimes called. That patients are way more complex and multidimensional, and their changes that go on as a result of interventions are not often the type that may be quantifiable within a controlled randomized clinical trial that's being done for very specific types of people in very, defined manners. And so the idea was, in private practice, we should be able to do science. And clearly, since 1970, practice-based research networks have grown, and DO-Touch.NET became the first, and as far as and now is one of two practice-based research networks that have a focus with osteopathic manipulative treatment. So in order to make this work, we have to have a community that can communicate with one another, that has a certain understanding about how to integrate methodologies within a practice, and to have a relationship to take time out of people's busy schedule to see that this is an important part of everyday practice. And that's, certainly how DO-Touch.NET sees our role. We see that manipulative treatment has been underappreciated, and certainly is only in its infancy and being understood. And so for the past, almost 12 years since we began its development, we have tried a variety of ways to engage membership. We started with having an annual meeting in Kirksville that would include a section of palpation training, and as well as the annual meeting details. And that generally occurred over a day-and-a-half time frame. We found that was very limiting in who it could engage, because traveling to Kirksville is certainly not easy from most places around the world, and requires a certain level of financial resources and time availability. So that's where we then took our annual meeting to the American Academy of Osteopathy's annual program, because we figured that most people also are members of that it brings a lot of international osteopathic practitioners to that. And that's where we have been for now probably 6-7 years, until the pandemic started. And as we showed you those pictures a couple of years ago, we've tried to find new ways of engagement. And I mentioned already the technique of the month as being one avenue that we've tried to, have regular engagement. There was an online annual meeting last year, which unfortunately engagement was not very good. It was a difficult venue, although I can say DO-Touch.NET created by far the most advanced program of any of the sponsors and program within the Academy's convocation. We just weren't very successful in engaging membership. We've tried to then reach out to membership to get a better idea as to how we can engage with membership, and we had started this program as a transition from the Technique of the Month program to try to get more people involved, more people informed, more people having perspectives and skills to be able to perform research within their practice. Because when we launch our next study, that study has the potential of having the same level of longevity and impact as a Framingham type of study that is longitudinally maintained. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the feedback we got from surveys that we've done. We're going to look at how we've tried to incorporate that information into the ways we have reached out to try to engage membership. And then at the end, we're going to want your constructive feedback and ideas and so forth on how we can continue to expand the quality of engagement that we're having throughout our network. So with that, we'll move to the next slide.
And this is my slide. So during so we didn't have an annual meeting in 2021, but we did participate as a sponsor for the AAO convocation, and that was held virtually. And we were given the opportunity to add some survey questions to their end of meeting survey. And so one of the things that we were thinking about is trying to figure out when are the best times that we could hold these Let's Talk About OMM research webinars so that we can try to maximize our engagement and sharing the information that we have to share. And so we surveyed through the AAO survey and found that the most popular time for the 129 people who responded to the survey, or actually 99 that answered this question, the most popular time would have been Monday through Friday late evening, so between 8 and 10. One of the things that we recognized is that a majority of the people who answered this survey would be from the US, and that we didn't have a way to account for differing time zones to try to figure out, late evening in whose time zone. And so as a result, we sent out a survey, and Sarah's going to tell you more about that. We sent out a survey to our DO-Touch.NET members to try to determine the best time for these webinars. So turn it over to Sarah.
Yes. So as she said, that survey was sent out at Convo, and there are a few factors in that that made us want to redo the survey, and we sent it specifically to members. And I see a lot of the people recognize the names of people who actually responded. So thank you guys for responding if you did. But as you can see, we sent that to all of our members, and we had 46 respondents. And of those 46, 16 said, or 35% stated that Fridays at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time was what worked best for them to attend this webinar. And so we actually changed the time to be in conjunction with the anniversary of DO-Touch.NET, which is in October. So October of 2021 was our first webinar that was held at noon Central Standard Time. So that'll bring us to the engagement of the webinars thus far. And we're going to look at live engagement and then on-demand engagement as well. So this is a graph showing every webinar thus far and how many people have attended the live sessions and how many people have requested CME for each webinar. Our best attended webinars have been the very first webinar, which was in October of 2020, and then episode 11, which was in August of 2021. And then we have on-demand views, which, as you know, you have to go to the DO-Touch.NET website, log into the forum to view the video again, and then you can post your comments and things like that. So as you can see, we have had some views, but the comments and discussion forum, we've had very little interaction there as well. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. So then,
Sarah,
go
can I
ahead.
just make one comment there?
Yes.
So that episode 3 that has had the most on-demand views was the first journal club that we did. So
yes,
just to let you know.
Okay, so then that'll bring us to engagement through our social media platforms. So looking there, again, we looked at the data from a year before I started until comparing it to when I started until January 11th. And so in all aspects, our social media presence is growing. DO-Touch.NET is more active and our audience is engaging and growing there too. So this is Facebook specific. We have 417 fans. Another terminology for that would be follower of our page, which has grown 11 from the previous year. We have 158 posts, which has increased 126 from the previous year. Our page has content clicks of 482, which has also increased 280. And then full engagement is here for 637 engagements, which breaks down over here what that looks like: reactions, shares, comments, things like that. And I did this for every platform, so there's 3 slides. So then we have Twitter. So we have 414 followers on Twitter, which is also increased, which is good. And then we have 194 tweets, which has increased from 52 the previous year. We have 510 clicks and 557 overall engagements on Twitter, which breaks down again in the table on the right. And then LinkedIn, we have 57 followers, which is an increase by 16 from the previous year, 115 posts, which is an increase of 104 from the previous year, 109 clicks on our content, which is an increase, and then 162 engagements, which is also an increase and breaks down at the table on the right. So we have had a lot of increased engagement on social media, but we are definitely looking to increase that more for sure. And then this is our OMM minutes, which is a new program that we started, which is the 1-minute videos, or hopefully 1-minute videos, no less than or no more than 5-minute videos that we post on social media and send out to the members. So our best performing one is the introduction video, and then the migraine study video, which was actually done by Dr. Fleming, who is on our executive board for DO-Touch.NET. And I say that because this particular video, the Nobel Prize video, We did do it as OMM, but it was not conducted by a DO-Touch member. It was just informational. So for those that have been done by members, Dr. Flemings has performed the best. So far we have 6 videos, but we definitely want to increase this with more participation from members. And we just did a survey, and I'm again see a lot of names that responded to that survey, and a lot of members are interested in doing some videos. So we'll have more of those coming out in 2022 as well. And there you go, Dr. Degenhardt. You're muted.
Thank you again. All right. So first of all, are there any questions or comments about the data that you just saw? We, as a practice-based research network, we want to make sure we're data-driven and certainly relevant to society in general. So any questions or clarifications anybody might have?
There are none in the chat, Dr. Degenhardt.
Okay.
I was going to go ahead and talk. You know, this probably represents my age since I am eligible for Medicare in a couple months. But you know, I just don't have time in my life to be on social media. You know, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of them. I mean, I've had accounts, but I have not paid attention to any of them for, you know, the last 12 months probably. And so I'm not sure, you know, but then I'm elderly in the group, I suppose. And so my concern is that if that's an outcome measure, I'm not going to show up on it.
Of the people that are on the webinar today, can we maybe have a show of hands of those that actually have done anything with the social media side of what we've reviewed today? Well, clearly Sarah is going to be the leader of that. So, all right. Well, as you can see, Jed, being a peer of yours, but clearly on the younger side, being the older brother, I have not contributed to those numbers as well, and that's and I can just say that's not going to change. So that's just the acceptance that we have, is that, you know, there's going to be a group of people that's just not part of their skill set nor their interest, because they're just too busy. Okay, but it looks like in general of those on this meeting, we've not had anybody engage through the social media component. I can say that, you know, the people that are here have engaged very well in regards to our, let's talk about osteopathic research and monthly meeting, and your engagement of that will guarantee you that the number you get from Sarah is going to allow you to come to our annual meeting without any cost, because you've been engaged, and that's what we want to support. So,
Brian?
Yeah.
There are several people on the call who have engaged with social media.
Okay, I did not see any hands come up. Yeah. Do you all have any feedback you want to offer?
I do see a lot of comments from several people stating that they weren't aware we had so much social media, and that they aren't using it as much as it may not be a part of their world.
So how can we improve membership to be aware of what we're doing on social media? Are there any suggestions that people might have to help that become more popular?
Well, it looks like
Well,
it's on the website, has those little icons for it, but
Mhm.
so at least you've advertised that it's there. I don't know.
So
Is
one-
anyone else on doximetry?
Sherry,
It's
I've never heard of that.
It is strictly for doctors, medical students and doctors. They're the only ones that sign up for it.
I'm on
I
Doximity.
Yeah.
Yep,
My
I use it too
understanding
for-
it's like LinkedIn for doctors, right?
Well, right, except for that, instead of a bunch of people trying to get you to be hired or hire someone, it's more about articles and medical expertise and comments. I mean, you can even put out a case out there and say, I'm having trouble with this. What does everybody else think? Here's what I've done, and get feedback from other doctors. So it's kind of an interesting site, especially since you're a doctor and you want the doctor information. You don't want the gobbledygook that you get on social media sometimes, or search engines. It is a great source of medical information.
Yeah, I agree that if we're going to try to reach fellow physicians, that's probably the best, better than LinkedIn, better than Facebook, better than Twitter, twits. I mean, there's no capacity for real intellectual engagement on Twitter. It's so limited. And the one suggestion I have, which I was in practice in Kansas City for a number of years out of a
Oh, Dr. Brooks, you froze.
Oh, yeah.
advertising. I moved to Tucson 5 years ago under some duress, and as Brian knows, a couple others on this meeting screwed around with the University of Arizona in anticipation of working there, and that was a bust because of the corporate model. So I set up a private practice and hired my son as my all-purpose business manager, CFO, advertising specialist, research assistant. Jim helps me with everything. And one of the things he got me to do, which I had been reluctant to do, because I didn't like to spend money. A penny saved is a penny earned is what I grew up with from the depression consciousness of my parents and grandparents. But he insisted that in addition to having a modern website, that we use Google Ads. And it's been pivotal in getting my practice robustly busy. We sent out letters to professionals. We did all the kind of historic things for promoting. I don't think that made a little difference, but I think the big thing was Google Ads. And I don't know, it costs money, and I don't know if that's applicable here, but I just wanted to share that was a real eye opener for me. It's, we have a Facebook page and all that stuff, but you get what you pay for, and that might be a consideration. I don't know how you target that, but there are mechanisms for targeting it. There are geographic and other mechanisms for targeting it. And I would think that osteopathic medical students, especially osteopathic OMM residency directors and participants in residencies, all the American Academy of Osteopathy members, if there's a way to basically advertise to them through targeted approaches, might yield more than the non-specific things of Facebook and Twitter and so forth.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, what impacted me in your comments was the potential. Would that help us potentially recruit, for the registry, or for, people getting involved or research or becoming aware of who is involved in the research. So actually highlighting, those clinics and those clinicians who are participating in research. So
I would volunteer my son to talk with any one of you in, Sarah or Jane or Brian, in any detail that you might want with his experience with that. There are ways to limit how much you spend. It's a very, very flexible system that we've only tapped for limited purposes just to get my clinic busy. But obviously, darn near everybody in the world Googles.
Right.
And as soon as you put in something, there are keywords that you put in and you get to choose which ones. And it's all, it all costs money. If you choose 10 keywords, it costs less than if you choose 50 keywords.
Right.
But that's, what your grant's for. And it has really been a fun. Tucson's a third the size of Kansas City. And I was anxious about getting the ball rolling again. And especially since I chose not to accept any insurance plans. So most of the referrals from the universities didn't happen. And yet, my business is full with regular input of, new patients coming in and coming out of the finishing the practice. And it's basically been not quite 2 years, because we started just when COVID hit, and then we had to shut down for a couple months. So it was in May of 2020 that we started. And so that would be my strong recommendation, to look at Google Ads.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, Jane.
Yeah, I was just going to, Amy Dean put a comment in the chat that said, I just saw an article that the DO is redesigning their content to be written by and directed at DOs and DO students. I was wondering if this might be an outlet for us to explore. So I think we'll look into that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
We actually put ads in. So they're publications for American Academy of Osteopathy. They're, kind of the newsletter about what's going on, and then the journal. Are there any print ads that DO-Touch has placed in those, and the Journal of American Osteopathic Association and the DO? So that's another consideration to target. And then there are international journals that I'm not as familiar with, that maybe just small print ads would, again, it's going to cost money, but.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bill. So Jane, are you another?
Jane, your hand is still up. Do you have another question? Nope, she's good.
Okay. All right. So one of the concerns that certainly I have is what is feasible, because engagement requires time. I can tell you, to put together a video post is not a short, quick process, at least at this stage of our skills. And so every time we are doing that, we are also taking us away from our primary purpose, and that is doing research in this field. So it's really important that we are successful in our engagement, that it is interesting and important to membership. So first of all, I know I'm speaking to the choir, and I really, really appreciate your all's engagement. We'll ask you in a moment, why are you engaged? What are the benefits, and is it going to be, is what we're doing valuable enough to continue? But we are seeing that, once again, we have 887 members now, I think.
877.
And so, that's a lot of people we're not connecting with, and we obviously want to continue to be expanding and engaging our membership. So, so first of all, is what we're doing meaningful? Is it interesting? Is it important? Do you have any comments for us?
So Dr. Degenhardt, Jed says, would there be a role for a staff-reviewed blog on OMT content guided possibly by the goals for the year where any member might take the opportunity to post? So at the current moment, no, there is no blog for that, but that is a very good idea.
Amy?
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to address the meaningful piece, and I had sent an email to Sarah earlier this week that last journal club, you know, I've always been kind of looking at research, but that journal club on non-musculoskeletal medicine and what Brian said about, you know, that there needs to, you know, research needs to also happen in an academic arena, and it has to be over a long period. And that, it just, I don't know, it just kind of turned on a light bulb for me. And that's when I actually started to actively pursue the NICU research opportunity with OMM. So I feel like, you know, the education piece for DO-Touch.NET is big, but also just, you know, to make me feel just, it's inspiring to me as well, what you guys are doing. And I really appreciate that.
I appreciate that, Dr. Dean. I just want to say the end goal here is not to get the most likes and people following us on Facebook. That's wonderful. That's great. But the end goal is to get engagement so that we can have members that are engaging in OMM research so we can further our mission. It's not necessarily just to get likes. So when we have this conversation, it's not because we just really enjoy Facebook and Twitter. It's to really advance OMM research.
Good question. So I was active member when I was in Kirksville, but I haven't been since moving to Massachusetts. Oh, sorry, a bunch of hands are up. Sorry. Anyway,
you're fine. Go ahead.
I got the floor. So before there was a large, there was a large project where we had input from lots of different sites. And again, I've been kind of away. This is an attempt for me to try to get back engaged. And is there that set up still for like an ongoing project, or is that something in the works, or like that was in the past and now we're trying to figure out what to do in the future?
So I'm going to give Jane a chance to make a comment there, but I will say that we will be going into details of that at the annual meeting. So definitely that would be a place to go in. But we've been working now for several years in developing an infrastructure for a registry, which allows for longitudinal research. And so with that, I'll let Jane give whatever updates you would like to give there.
Okay, I'm done. No, no, we have finished setting up the infrastructure for what we're affectionately calling the OMT patient registry. We used to call it OSPREY as our acronym, but the lawyers have told us that that would have a conflict with some other healthcare organization. So we've shifted over to the OMT patient registry, and we have the infrastructure set up, and we're in the process. Within the next couple weeks, we will be starting to hold focus groups with patients to help us improve the readability and the understandability of the content of the OMT patient registry. Following that, we will be doing a pilot test to get feedback on how the system works, the whole infrastructure system works. And our plans are to then open up use of the OMT patient registry to all DO-Touch.NET members in the United States. We are starting in the United States. There are regulatory complications outside the United States with having to comply with GDPR in the European Union, and in Brazil, they have new data protection regulations as well. And so that's going to take a bit longer, but we are getting that ready to launch in the United States.
Dr. Downs, did you have a comment?
I did. You know, with regards to what's interesting and what's important, my engagement really springs from the fact that I think it's important to work with a group of people in doing research that have an appreciation that our science cannot be controlling everything but one variable. That we take patients as they come and we realize that somebody's complex of osteopathic dysfunctions is not going to be comparable across, you know, across all fields, and that symptoms are not necessarily predicted, you know, that the osteopathic dysfunction pattern is not going to be predictable on the basis of symptoms alone. And so I think that giving the osteopath the ability to do what's necessary as opposed to doing a technique to see if that technique works, because application of a technique to a symptom is it's a very inaccurate inaccurate means of trying to hit a very fuzzy target. So anyway, that's why I keep on trying to be involved, is because I think we just have to appreciate the complexity of what OMT really is.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Thank you, Dr. Downs. Dr. Marcucci, did you have a comment?
Yes, no, I agree with all the comments that have been done. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I agree with all comments that have been done until now. What I would like to add is only one of the problems that we have in osteopathic medicine. We treat dysfunction, and these dysfunctions are related to symptoms often, but not only on one symptom can have different dysfunction or only one dysfunction. And we have not a map saying touch dysfunction is related to these kind of symptoms. And another thing is, in medicine, we are treating diseases. In osteopathic medicine, we don't treat diseases. We treat impairment of joints, the most which are translated in osteopathic vocabulary dysfunction. And there are two different vocabulary and understanding of what the patient has to be, how the patient has to be treated. Was I enough clear? Or well, it's one concern. I don't have, I treat my patients, but it's one of my concerns I have in mind since a few years.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Sergio.
Dr. Degenhardt, I just want to ask really quickly, Angelique, did you have a comment or a question? I saw that you had unmuted.
I did. I agree with the doctor that just spoke, but as an osteopathic physician, I don't feel like I'm only treating joints. Yes, I have the fact of treating dis-ease, and I am trying to promote normal physiologic motion. And so we're trying to name somatic dysfunction in side bent right, rotated left, flexed, whatever, or some standardized languaging, which is somewhat limiting. But we're also building on the fact that when we do mobilize a segment or an area, then the impact is, yes, circulation is better, lymphatics are better,
Yeah.
normalizing function. So that's what sometimes we're missing because we're just manipulate that joint.
Yes, I
And
agree.
so that's somewhat where,
Mhm.
so that's one comment. And I do have another question, but let's finish your comment right now to my comment. Okay. I'll mute and wait for, okay.
Yes, okay. I agree completely on what you said now.
Dr.
Completely.
Degenhardt, I know Angelique has a question, but do you have any final thoughts before she asks that? Because we only have 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Angelique will have the final question, and then we'll head into wrap up then. So, okay, Dr. Mazzara.
So I would like to know if there's been research on the challenges that osteopathic physicians have had to maintain their 10-fingered osteopathic practice, because that's part of the engagement I think we want to bring out. I practice 10-fingered osteopathy, and I would like to do more research, but I don't have the setup or the assistance to do it. But I'm engaged because I want to, and I'm interested in being part of my colleagues that do similar work because I'm always learning. But I have an area where I've asked the graduate medical education is majority are osteopathic residents and medical students in the area. Nope, they're not interested in osteopathic recognition. They're not interested in that education. And I'm pulling my hairs out. So do you have data, or could we put something out along those lines as far as trying to get more engagement and where people might be stopped about wanting to learn more? So that's my comment question.
Okay, thank you, Angelique. So first of all, certainly there has been generational concerns about how future osteopathic physicians were staying engaged with the manipulative medicine component of their training. I can say I am unaware of anything really recent published along that line. I would also say that, you know, the world's changing very rapidly right now. And part of that is we can, you know, point to the pandemic. Part of it we can point to how we've had to associate with each other as a result of the pandemic. The entire learning style is under significant revolution. I mean, we're lucky if we have 8 or 10 students in a classroom at any one time now. Everybody is just going to the recorded sessions, playing it at faster speeds so they can, you know, save time and so forth. So it's a very complicated issue. It's one that goes well beyond the time that we have, but certainly agree with you with those concerns. And it really means that we got to find ways to continue to engage the younger early career osteopathic practitioner, clinician, and as well as in the student level. And DO-Touch.NET has student membership. And so when you have people that you know that are really kind of interested in this whole pattern and they're still in training, DO-Touch.NET, they can get engaged in DO-Touch.NET now, and they can have a mentorship community as a result of that. So that would be my immediate recommendation on that point. So with that, I'd like to begin wrapping up. Sarah, can you give us an update on what our next program in February will be?
Yes, so it's actually going to be Dr. Belsky, and she works with the University of Indiana, and she works with children in the pediatric unit. Sorry, I lost the word for cancer. She works with children with cancer. So she will be there. It's February 18th at noon, US Central Standard Time. Thank you guys so much. And all of these suggestions are only going to help us do our job better. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend.